Sanjay ji, can I invite you to come over and say a few words? Thank you.
Solid. Okay. The completely redesigned, restyled edition is published 3.5 decades after the original and published in 1987. As we all know, the Ramacharita-Mānasa is primarily based on Valmiki's Ramayana and the Adhyatma Ramayana written by Ved Vyas. Tulasī's Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa was written in 1576, is an epic scripture that has always gripped the imagination of Bharat and shaped its value system, traditions and culture, yet the original written in the vernacular of these not understood by all. This annotated word for word English translation fills the gap, enabling a deeper, in-depth understanding of the finer nuances. This new edition of Ramacharita-Mānasa translation will take you reading experience of this epic classic to another level. Her goal is to make the scriptures appealing and comprehensible to everyone, particularly the younger generations, to imbibe the deep wisdom embedded in them. In today's program, Dr. Neela Thapar Moorjani, editor of the book, will give you a preview of her work through reading and recitation of selected verses, hymns, and dialogues, show a short video of the making of this exclusive book, and finally discuss the relevance of Ramacharita-Mānasa. I will not take much of your time now. I hand over the mic to Neela Thapar Moorjani ji to take over the stage for today's program. I thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for your very kind words. So, Jai Shrī-Ram, Komal Chit Ati Deen Dayala, Bin Karan Raghunath Kripala. So here we are today with the grace of Ramji, who without any reason beknown to us has bestowed this wonderful opportunity upon us. Welcome and thank you all for your very valuable time. I'd like to provide some background on today's insightful talk regarding the epic and literary masterpiece, Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa. This journey for us as a family started in January 2015, almost 9 years back. This project was at the behest of Neela, who over the course of her life was continuously inspired to embark on something so special and something so great that requires no introduction. It was at the advent, and shall I say the beginnings of the explosion of social media, that Neela voiced this idea of republishing this grand work done by our late maternal grandfather, Shri Chandanlal Dhodi, which was first published in 1987 and subsequently, sadly, soon went out of publication for various reasons. For this work, our grandfather was awarded the Anuvad Shri Award by the Bharatiya Anuvad Parishad, New Delhi. Our collective aim behind this mammoth project has been to get this Hindu epic scripture out to one and all, in every corner of the globe, as far-reaching as that may be. With this lofty aim in mind, Neela started on this very long and arduous journey with full love and devotion. My sister has always been of a scholarly bent and is a PhD and a postdoc in geography in her own right. Apart from being a topper in whatever Neela did in her young life, she has always been and remains a creative person who always endeavors to find a creative solution to whatever comes to her. Of course, with this project being a prime example. She has devoted her married life to raising a young, successful family. Come 2015, Neela started work on the republication of this glorious scripture by first commissioning the retyping of the original translation work of the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa. From then onward, there has been no looking back for Neela. She has devoted, in one way or another, every waking hour of her time to this very spiritually rewarding work. This has been whilst juggling a family life and devoting time to her spouse and growing children at the time. She has spent enormous number of hours and has gone through a myriad of highs and lows during this project. Today, we collectively are experiencing this high, which undoubtedly is a momentous occasion. A huge thank you to Neelamji. A huge thank you to the Nehru Center for inviting us here today. With also a big thank you to Neelamji, a very dear friend who has tirelessly worked in making tonight a resounding success, while also presenting us with many other marvelous opportunities to come and talk about her work, our book, to the local communities in each wonderful part of the world, all of which has become possible by the grace of Ramji. We shall remain ever so grateful to all of them for this very kind and privileged gesture. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all our dignitaries and all esteemed guests here tonight for joining us in celebrating the launch of the English translation of the revered Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa. And before I close, a couple of housekeeping or reminders for this evening. Please very kindly switch off your mobile phones or put them on silent to enjoy this very immersive experience. As you'll notice, you've all been handed out a booklet for this event. Please feel free to take this with you as a souvenir after this event. Lastly, please join in with the chanting of the select verses of the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa, which are all in the booklet with you. During the chanting, please follow the page number on the bottom of the page. I think I've already taken enough time. Now, without any further ado, over to Neela, where I'll leave you all to enjoy her chanting and presentation in first hand. Jai Shri Ram.
सिया राम में सब जग जानी करहु प्रणाम चोरी जुग पानी. I bow to the entire creation permeated by Siya and Ram. Jai Shri Ram, everyone. Namaste and a very good evening to you all. First of all, my heartfelt gratitude to the Nehru Center for giving us this wonderful opportunity to launch this beautiful book here today at this prestigious venue. I'm truly humbled and blessed to have this chance. And my heartfelt gratitude to all of our esteemed guests, our chief guest of honor, and our special guests this evening, who have taken out the valuable time from their evening, a cold wintry evening, to make it to this event. Thank you all very much. I'd first like to invite our esteemed chief guest of honor, Councillor Ramji Chauhan, the worshipful, the Mayor of the London Borough of Harrow, to come up on stage and cut the ribbon and unwrap this beautiful book. Alongside, I would also like to invite Councillor Sunil Chopra, former Mayor of Sadak, to please come up on stage as well. Do we have anybody else here? And I would also like to invite Mr. Sanjay Sharma to please come up on stage, the Deputy Director of the Nehru Center, for this book launch. I'd like to thank our special thanks to Mrs. Rashmi Mishra from the Inspiring Indian Women, who's not here this evening, but she has facilitated a lot of what is happening tonight. So a big thank you to her. Now I'd like to invite my brother-in-law, Anup Sondi, and my sister, Mrs. Neela Thapar Moorjani, to please go ahead and start the proceedings.
Neela, please join us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to facilitate you with a shawl and some flowers.
Anup. Councillor Ramji. Councillor Sunilji. Sanjayji.
Thank you so much, everyone. What brings me here this evening before you is a story that in my life actually started 10 years ago to my consciousness, but actually had started way before then, about 3 decades back, when I went to the United States as a young student, and my grandfather set me off on that journey with the original edition of this translation. And he also handed me the Devanagari translation alongside it to serve as a guide in my new life as a student abroad. Now, today here, I sit before you as a representative of my grandfather, Mr. Shri Chandan Lal Dhodi, who is the translator of this work. And I am simply the editor or the design and content editor of this work. I consider myself to be just a student of the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa. Although it's the simplest of our epic scriptures, yet at times it is a little difficult to comprehend, especially and particularly for those of us who are not well versed in the Awadhi language that it was written in. Now, the Ramayana, you all know, is the timeless and the eternal story of Sri Ram, the Katha of Sri Ram, filled with love, devotion, sacrifice, duty, courage, and dharma. It is a story that we never tire of hearing again and again and yet again. It is a story that has the most lofty ideals and characters that can be seen in any scripture of the world. We all come to it with varying degrees of knowing the Ramayana. Now, when we talk about the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa, the question comes to mind: what is the difference between the Ramayana and the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa? So I'll try to answer that first for those of us who are younger or not yet familiar with the Ramacharita-Mānasa. Now I'll backtrack a little bit. In our huge body of Indian scriptures, there are just these two basic scriptures that are considered itihas, or the history, or that which had happened. The Ramayana is one of them, and the second one is the Mahabharata. So today, I'm here to talk about the Ramayana. Now, the Ramayana, it was written originally by sage Valmiki 10,000 years ago during the descension of Lord Ram on this planet. He wrote it in Sanskrit. This story, in our tradition of storytelling and oral transmission, was retold numerous times in practically all the regional languages of India and way beyond in many, many other countries. Now, not so long ago, in the 16th century, the poet saint Goswami Tulasī ji, he retold this Ramayana again. That is this Ramayana, the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa. What he did different here was, he wrote it in the local vernacular being Awadhi. And that made this scripture so popular, way beyond even the original. And even today, it is revered in the same manner. Now, so much so that a Western historian, I'm going to read out from here, so much so that Western historian Vincent Smith said of Goswami Tulsidas, he was the greatest man of his age in India, even far greater than the Mughal Emperor Akbar, whose contemporary he was, for his achievement in the conquest of hearts and minds of millions of men and women was far greater than those for the victories gained by a monarch in war. The key difference between Valmiki's Ramayana that was written 10,000 years ago and Tulsidasa's Ramayana was that Valmiki focused on the humanity of Ram, the Maryada Purushottam Ram, the ideal man Ram, the Param Purush Ram, whereas Goswami Tulsidas, he focused on the divinity of the Ram. A little more about Goswami Tulsidas. So he was just not a saint and a philosopher and a poet, but at the same time, I see him as a great visionary and a social reformer. There were many cracks in the society at that time, and he tried to bridge many of those schisms by this particular retelling of the Ramayana, those related to caste, class, sect, faith, and even education. So he made this scripture accessible to pretty much everybody, whether they were lettered or not. And he wrote it at the time when India was in the grip of the Mughal occupation. This scripture came as a ray of hope for the people who were in deep despair. Now, moving on forward, it's also considered, the Westerners, when they came to India, in the whole, huge body of Indian scriptures, they considered this particular scripture the Bible of North India. And Tulsidas ji wrote many other works. I think 11 are attributed to him. But of those, this is his key work that had a profound impact on the entire culture, traditions, value system, and the very psyche of India. So now let's move on further. And I think I've covered most of this. But the great thing about this scripture is, for anybody wanting to understand Hindu philosophy, Tulsidas ji has distilled the entire Hindu philosophy or the Sanatan Dharam philosophy from the Vedas, Purana, Upanishads, Puran, into this very scripture. Now, how it's written, it is considered a Mahakavya, a long poem. He's written it in lyrical prose. He's written it in lyrical prose so that people can chant and then memorize. And as you memorize, you begin to grasp the meanings. And that is how it's been passed down to us. So the 4 poetic meters he uses are the chopais, the dohas, the soratas, and the chands. And as we go through the evening, I'm going to give you a flavor of each one of those. In some of the popular traditional tunes, the scripture is chanted in. And he infused it with so much ras, a nectar of devotion all throughout the scripture, that people simply love this scripture. Now the scripture, this Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa is organized in 7 chapters. 7 chapters are considered the 7 spiritual steps to get to Shrī-Ram. And these are the Balkand, Ayodhya-Kand, Aranya-Kand, Kishkinda-Kand, Sundar-Kand. Sundar-Kand, the most chanted of these, Lanka-Kand, and Uttar-Kand. I think we'll stop here. So let me now get to the chanting piece of it, and I'll ask you to turn to your booklets that you can take home as a souvenir. And this has several of the book pages in there that I'm going to chant from, and it has the English translation next to it. The page numbers are a little bit confusing, but you follow the one on the bottom as I talk about them. So let's move on to the first page of the book. That is first page of the book, actually not first page of the booklet, the page number 10 of the booklet. And this is the very first page of the first canto in the book. Now, alongside all those poetic meters that I talked about, Tulsidas has infused the entire writing with a lot of similes, metaphors, and all other literary devices one can think of. And that's why it's considered so good. Now, I'm just going to chant the very first shalok to give you a flavor of this. Varnanam Sankhanam Rasanam Chan Samapi Mangalanam Cha Kartaro Vande Vani Vinayako. So in the very first invocatory shlok, the first obeisance Tulsidas offers is to the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning. It's only with the synergy of the goddess of learning and the god of wisdom, that's Ganesh, that auspiciousness comes to whatever we do. And it translates as, obeisance I offer to Saraswati and Ganesh, the maker of letters, meanings, moods, meters, and beatitudes. So next, let's go to the next page. It'll give you a flavor of Tulsidas offering some more prayers in another poetical meter. जो सुमिरत सिद्ध होई गणनायक करिवर पतन करहु अनुग्रह सोई बुद्धि राशि शुभ गुण सतन पंगु चढ़ई गिरिवर गहन चासु कृपा सो दयाल द्रवहु सकल कलिमल दहन. By whose benevolence the dumb becomes a good orator, and the lame climbs the highest and the most inaccessible mountain, and who burns the entire dirt and sins of the Kali Yuga, may that merciful one be compassionate to me. So this is one of the prayers that Tulsidas offers in the beginning, and there are many more. I'll finish singing the rest of these, but I won't recite the translation for each one. You're welcome to read them at leisure as you take the book home. But while you're here, I do invite you all to join in the chanting if you are able to read the Hindi. Neel saroru sham tarun harun parij nayan karhu sumam urtha sada shir sagar sayan kund indu करुणायन चाहि दीन परने करहु कृपा मर्दन सयन बंदो गुरुपद कन कृपा सिंधु नर रूप हरि महामोहतम पुन जासु वचन रवि कर निकर. So the next one on page number 12, there is a chand that kind of goes to the heart of this entire scripture, and I'm going to sing that one next. मंगल करणी कलिमल हरणी तुलसी कथा रघुनाथ की गति कूर कविता सरित की जो सरित पावन पार्थ की प्रभु सुजस संगति भनिति फली सोई सुजन भव भावनी भव अंग भूति मसान की सुमिरत सुहावनी पावनी. The Raghunath story, O Tulasī, brings beatitude and wipes out the dirt and the sins of Kali Yuga. Through the stream of this poem, though the stream of this poem moves in a curved fashion like the river of the holy waters, that is the Ganga, yet by virtue of its association with the splendid glories of the Lord, it will become beautiful as well as pleasing to the minds of the good people, in the same manner as the ash of the cremation ground becomes charming when on the body of Shiv and purifies on being remembered just casually. On the next page is an example of a Saurata. Now here's a very good example. This is a very popular verse that is sung for Lord Hanuman. But it's a great example how the meanings of the same verses can be interpreted a little differently. So let's sing this one. Page number 13. Pranavo Pavan Kumar खलबल पावक ज्ञान धन जासु हृदय आगार बस ही राम शर चाप धर. So here Tulsidas is saying, I reverentially bow to Hanuman, the wind's child, who annihilated the villains in the manner the fire burns a forest, is the very image of solid knowledge, and in the home of whose heart there resides Ramji holding the arrows and the bow. And in the very next version that can be of this translation, that can be interpreted a little differently, where it says that in his very heart there is Ramji, but he has put aside his bow and arrows because there are no vices or no demons to be killed in the heart of Hanumanji. Now the next page number 14 and 15. It gives you a feel of how some concepts are explained in this book. The Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa is a story within a story, within a story, within a story, and that's how many of our Indian scriptures are narrated. In the Ram-Charita-Mānasa, there are 4 platforms. From the platform of Gyan, of philosophy, Lord Shiva narrates this tale to Maharani Parvati on her questioning about Sri Ram. On the platform of Karam and action, sage Yajnavalkya narrates this story to sage Bharadwaj. On the platform of devotion or bhakti, in his crow form, Kak Bhushundi Ji Maharaj narrates this story to the biggest bird, the Garud, the eagle, from a platform of bhakti. And lastly, Goswami Tulasī Das Ji narrates it from the platform of Sharanagati, or complete surrender to his Lord Ram, and he narrates it to himself and to us, his audience. So this forms the 4 ghats, or the 4 banks of this spiritual lake. This is how the spiritual lake is formed. Next, I picked a beautiful hymn, which is in the Chand meter. And this is when the tyranny of the demons had brought a lot of misery to sages and people on this earth, and all of them gather together and they go to Lord Vishnu to help them out of their despair and to take a birth on earth, or take avatar, or descend on earth. And that is how the story of Sri Ram begins. So this beautiful hymn we'll sing next. Jai Jai Surnayak Jan Sukhdayak Pranat Pal Bhagavanta Kodvij Hitkari Jai Asurari Sindhu Sitha Priya Kanta Sindhu Sutha Priya Kanta Palan Sur Dharani Adbhut Karani मर्म न जानहि कोई जो सहज कृपाला दीन दयाला करहु अनुग्रह सोई करहु अनुग्रह सोई जय जय अविनाशी सब घटवासी व्यापक परमानंदा अवगित गोतीतम चरित पुनीतम माया रहित मुकुंदा माया रहित मुकुंदा निशिवासर ध्यावहि गुण गण गावहि जयति सचिदानंदा जहि लागी विरागी अति अनुरागी विगत मोह मुनि वृंदा विगत मोह मुनि वृंदा जहि सृष्टि उपाई त्रिविध बनाई संग सहाय न दूजा सो कर अवधारी चिंत हमारी जाने भगति न पूजा जाने भगति न पूजा जो भव भय भंजन मुनि मन रंजन गंजन विपति बरूथ झूठा मन वच क्रम वाणी छाड़ी सयानी सरन सकल सुर झूठा सरन सकल सुर झूठा शारद ऋति से ऋषय शेषा चाकहु कोई न जाना जो ही तीन पियारे वेद पुकारे द्रवहु सो श्री भगवाना द्रवहु सो श्री भगवाना भव पारिधि मंदर सब विधि सुंदर गुण मंदिर सुख पुंजा मुनि सिद्ध सकल सुर परम भयातुर नमत नाथ पद कंजा नमत नाथ पद कंजा. So these hymns, there are several of them coming throughout the book, and these are considered the bright constellations in the sky of the Shrī-Rāma-Charita-Mānasa. So whatever I sung till this point are things which come as pauses or come once in a while. But how the entire scripture is sung, how the narration is sung, I'm going to do that. And I picked a beautiful discourse between sage Valmiki and Shrī-Ram. And here, Tulasī ji narrates that during his forest sojourn, Shrī-Ram visits a lot of sages, and amongst those, sage Valmiki as well. So this discourse is so important because in this very discourse, how the dialogue ensues, Tulasī ji gives the gist of the entire Vedic philosophy in 6 sets of verses. I'm not going to be singing all of them, but I'll sing just a few of them. So when Shrī-Ram meets sage Valmiki, and remember 10,000 ago it was sage Valmiki who was the first author of the Ramayana. He was there at that time. And he's again here at the time of the retelling by Goswami Tulasī Das. It is also considered that Goswami Tulasī Das ji was a reincarnation of sage Valmiki. Now Shrī-Ram asks him, can you please recommend to us what would be the best place for us to stay in this forest? And the question how Shrī-Ram asks him, sage Valmiki smiles and he says to him, you who are the Lord of the entire world and who know everything that anybody is thinking or happening everywhere, and yet you are asking me, where should I stay in this forest? But nonetheless, now that you've asked, I will answer that question. And this is that dialogue. You can read the meanings as we go along, but I'm going to sing this, and I hope some of you who are familiar with this script, the Devanagari script, will join me in this. Mangal Bhavan Amangal Hari Dravahu Sudashrat Ajir Bihari Dekhi Pai Muni Rai Tumhare Bhai Sakrit Sab Sufal Hamare Ab Jahrahur Ayasu Hoi Muni Udve Guna Pavehi Koi Muni Tapas Jin ते दुख लेहि ते नरेश बिनु पावक दह्यहि मंगल मूल विप्र परितोषु दह्यहि कोटि मूल सरोषु अस जिय जानि कही सोई ठाऊ सिए सौमित्र सहित चह जाऊ तह रुचि रुचिर पैन तुन साला बासु करो कुछ काल कृपाला सहज सरल सुनी रघुवर वाणी साधु साधु बोले मुनि ज्ञानी कस न कहूँ अस रघुकुल केतु तुम पातक संतन रीति हेतु. So this was on page 18. राम स्वरूप तुम्हार वचन अगोचर बुद्धि पर अविगत अकथ अपार नेति नेति नित निगम कहा. O Ram, your glorious form is beyond the reach of words or intellect. It is imperceptible, indescribable, and endless. The Vedas always mention it by the term neti neti. Neti neti meaning that is not it, that is not it, it is just beyond anybody's description. मंगल भवन अमंगल हारी द्रवहु सुदशरथ अजिर बिहारी.